Okay, so good afternoon everyone. So today nandito ako para to teach you a little bit on how to utilize Microsoft Excel in computing your data, such as your weighted mean, your average weighted mean, as well as your Pearson correlation coefficient R. Specifically, these three are what we are going to focus on today. So first, to compute your data is, of course, you need to have data. You need to finish your data gathering before you can administer treatment to your data. Kailangan mo munang matapos mag-administer ng survey questionnaire bago ka makapag-tally ng data mo. So, let's say that you have finished your data gathering. Now, you want to administer the statistical treatment for your data, which is the weighted mean, the average weighted mean, and the like, the correlation, all that good stuff. So we can see here that I have three sub-variables for my independent variable, which is music therapy. So we have executive functions, critical thinking, and emotional intelligence. Each of them have 5 indicators to represent them. So we tallied this data here. So this is the raw data of the responses of the students on our survey questionnaire with the rating scale that we used. So this measures the extent of the role of music therapy, and this measures the level of the learning competence of students with or rather mediated by music therapy. So let's say na natapos mo ng itali yung data mo here in Excel. So yeah. Let's say natapos mo ng itali yung data. So we have 121 respondents. So what do we want to do next? Now we want to give meaning to these numbers, because they are just raw numbers. We want to give meaning to them here. So kukunin muna natin yung sum of all of this. Actually let's try to demonstrate it, so para mas maintindihan ng ayos. Let's take a portion of the independent variable, say up to 86, to the 86 respondent. Let's copy that, and then we paste it here on this new sheet. Okay. So remember, our n is equal to 86. Okay? And now, okay, para hindi tayo malito. Okay. This is the x variable. The x on their x-axis. This is the x variable. And now, let's also take a sample from the dependent variable responses up to the 86 respondent. Okay. Yeah. Actually, sorry. Up to the 86 respondent. And what we want to do is paste it here as well. And this is our y, and this would be our x. Now, what we want to do to measure for the weighted mean, so as what we can see here, the weighted mean is the summation of the frequency multiplied by the weight point of each option. This is the standard thing that we used in practical research too, and other quantitative studies that we might have already conducted. But during this time, you can actually just add all the raw data divided by our n, and it will give us our weighted mean. So magtatali ka lang ng data, and then you divide it by your number of respondents, and you will have your weighted mean. So our first step muna is to get the sum of all the responses in question number 1 of our sub variable 2.1. Okay, so how do we do that? Go to a new cell. This is column B, row 88. Okay, let's remember that because we will need to remember that later. Get the sum equals equal sign and then sum. Now put a parenthesis, and now what you want to do is just drag it here up until you reach the desired number of what you want to add all together. So the summation of all of these numbers right here is 388. If you are on mobile, and then if you want to get the sum of that, gagawin mo lang is you need to input the cell of which the row and the column of which it started. So it's B2 up until, what is this? This is B87. Now we just put a column. Let's put a column over there. Input 87. Right? Okay. So if you're on mobile, that's how you would do that. And if you want to get the same for all these values, then you can just drag this, and you can see the magic of spreadsheets. So this is where the real power of the spreadsheets really come from. The quick computation of large amounts of data in almost just a second. So if you're on mobile, I don't know if we can drag it. I think you may have to do it manually, but it's still quicker than just yung pagtatara nyo ng data manually and then putting it, and it's just such a hassle. So this way, mas mapapadali yung inyong data gathering. Now, to get the weighted mean, is you have to multiply the summation of the responses, actually divide the summation of the number of responses to the number of your respondents. Okay. Now put an equal sign, and then this row, this column, and this row B88. This is the sum of all the responses in question 1. And B88. Now what is your n? Our n is 86. Now to divide something in Excel, just put a slash over it. Yeah. Now we want to round this off into, I think, 2 significant figures would suffice rather. Now we just go to number here, then press this, and we want to look into category and that number. Then we can see the decimal places if we want to. So yeah, we can see that what we want is 2. Okay. Now we just need to drag it all over again so we can get the weighted mean of each indicator. See how quick that is, diba? You don't need to spend literal days or hours in that regard to just compute for the weighted mean when you can do it after you just tallied your data. Ang siguro magtatagal lang dito is yung pagtatally nyo ng data, but it is all worth it in the end. Next, we get the average weighted mean. To get the average weighted mean, we want to get the sum of the weighted mean. Of course, in practical research too, this is what we were taught. And then divide it by how many, divide it by the frequency, which is 5. Okay, so this is our average weighted mean for this variable, this sub-variable. I want to do the same with this. Okay, dahan-dahan muna natin gawin dahil baka magkamali pa tayo dito. Now, divide it by 5. Same with this. Now divide it by 5 again. Okay. So if you can see, this is our weighted mean and our average weighted mean for the x variable, which is the extent of the role of music therapy for the students. Okay. Now we also want to get the weighted mean as well as the average weighted mean of this dependent variable, our y variable. So again, we want to get the sum. Don't forget the parentheses. The sum of all the responses in this column, because this is the all the responses in this column. Okay. That. And now drag it until we get that, and okay, it is satisfying. So for the weighted mean, again, we repeat the steps. We look at the column and then the row number. So put an equal sign, B 178. Divide it by the number of respondents. Our n is 86. Look at that. Again, round it off to do decimal places. And again, we can drag it here to get the weighted mean of all the data. See? For the average weighted mean, same steps. The sum of these 5 divided by 5. Okay, same with this. The sum of this divided by 5. Divided by 5. Okay. Now we have the weighted mean and the average weighted mean of our independent variable and dependent variable. Now if you are conducting correlational research, then this is probably the most tedious part, but it's actually not at all complicated. It looks complicated, but we will break it down. So first, let's look at our statistical treatment of data. This is the formula for the Pearson correlation coefficient R, the Pearson R coefficient. First, we need to find the values of each of these coefficients. Okay? Dahan-dahan natin gawin. And I think we would want to put that in a new sheet. Okay, so starting off, we have our n, and our n is 86. Okay, let's just make this a little more organized. And now next we have the summation of x. Okay, let's just copy it here. Sorry, I will rename this 2. Okay, so to get the summation of x, what we need to do is basically add all the values of x, meaning all of this, okay. So actually have the summed values here already. We can just get the sum of those to get the summation of x. So in this column here is the sum and then parentheses of all of these values. And 5678 is our summation of x. Okay, and now for the summation of y, we just copy that. The summation of y is we just add all these values. Same with the summation of x. Sum parentheses all of these. Okay, so 5640 is the summation of y. Now, next up, we have the summation of x and the summation of y. Now let's look at the summation of x times y. So you may be thinking that simply it is we sum this and this. No, because if we multiply the summation of x to the summation of y, it would actually overload the correlation equation, and you won't be able to have the proper coefficient. The Pearson R coefficient won't be around -1 to +1. If you're computing for the Pearson correlation R, the value will always range from -1 up to +1. That is the domain. That is the domain, or the range rather, of computing for the Pearson correlation coefficient. So that, okay. So if you end up with a large value like that, that is not the summation of xy, because this would be the value that we need. So the summation of x times y, here, to do that is we need to apply some calculations again. So if you look at this row, that is the response of one respondent in the questionnaire that we administered to them. So we need to get the sum of that. The sum of that. Okay. Alright. And then we drag this down up to the last. Sorry. Here. Now, if you add all of this, that would just be the summation of x all over again. What we want to find is the summation of x times y. And to do that, we would also need to compute for this. Okay? Sum parentheses equal sign sum parentheses this. Okay, and then we will drag that down again. Okay, now that we have those values, we will multiply this value right here to the first value of x right here, and after we multiply all of those, we get the summation of that, and that would be our summation of x times y. Okay, bear with me, mahirap pag-English. Remember this cell number, the column and the row. So this is C2, S2. This is S2, and then this is S92. Okay, there's actually a thing here. We can just look at that. Let's do it here. S2 times, we multiply it by, I actually forgot, S92. Okay, am I right? Okay, there, you see here. Now we drag that down up until the last number. Because that would just multiply all of these corresponding x values up to here. So the first one will be incongruence with the first one, second one is with the second one, and so on and so forth. So basically this is the values, and now we basically just need to add this all together. Equal sign sum parentheses all of these values here. Okay, this is actually taking a lot of time. Okay, this right here is the summation of x times y, not this. Okay, so let's just copy this. Summation of xy is this. Sorry, this is the summation of xy. Let's just put it manually. That is the summation of x times y. Now next is what we want to find is the summation of x squared. And like I said before, the summation of x squared, let's just copy this. Since we don't have superscript in Excel, let's just do that. To get the summation of x squared, we have to square these values. Okay, to do that, we will put the corresponding column and row number. So S2, to get the square, just multiply it by itself. S2. Okay. And now you have 64 squared. 64 squared is 4096. Simply bring this down. And now you want to get the sum. Okay? The sum of all of this. This is the sum of x squared. 377,806. And it's the same step for summation of y squared. Now, again, equal sign. Look at the row number in the cell. That's 92 times that. So 68 squared is 4,624. Now drag this down again. Okay. Until we get to the end. Okay. See? There's much less hassle. It really makes things easier. And now we want to get the sum of this. This will be the summation of y squared. Sum parentheses. Let's get all of these. Okay. So this is the summation of y squared. 373,353. 353. Am I right? 334. Sorry. Okay. And now I think we can proceed with the equation. Nothing. Unless we missed something. So this is the formula for the Pearson correlation R. Okay, so let's zoom in a little bit. First off, we put the value of n, which is 86, multiplied by the summation of x times y, 374,758. I'll input it in the calculator as we go, so we don't waste time. Okay, let me just set it up. 86 times, what's the value again? 374,758. 374,758 minus the summation of x. The summation of x is 4,678. 78 times the summation of y, which is 4,640. Okay. 4,640. Okay. Over the square root of n, which is 86, times the summation of x squared. Summation of x squared is 377,806 minus, wait, let's put this here first, minus the summation of x quantity squared. The summation of x quantity squared is basically just this, and we square that. So that squared. Okay? Hold the bracket here. And now we have n again. This part, 86 times summation of y squared is 273,234. 373,334 minus the summation of y quantity squared, this. Let me just put all of those in the calc. Okay, so if you put these values on the calculator, the value will always range only from -1 to +1, and based from the calculations here, the value of r is 0.750705244, meaning that our Pearson r is approximately 0.75, meaning that there is a strong positive correlation between the x and y values. So if we see that on a slope, say there's a slope right here, low x values would mean low y values, and high x values would mean high y values as well. So there's a direct relationship. It is directly proportional. Okay, so you can see that is what it would look like on a trend. So basically, now that we computed it, you can also try showing the trend of the numbers. Let's take my research, for example. Okay, let's go back here. We can take all of these values right here. We can copy that. And we can go to this site right here. The one presented by Statistics Kingdom. I used it yesterday to validate my Pearson correlation coefficient computation. So let's input the x values right there, and then the y values. It's actually right here. Okay, let's copy that. I'll put it here. This website uses a different kind of calculation from what we usually do from the conventional way. Okay, let's calculate that. So the value that we got is 0.72 based on our research, and as you can see, as what I have explained here, the trend is positive. It's following the slope right here, as you can see. Now let's try what we calculated here on the sample. Just bear with me here. Bear with me. Okay. Let's input our x values and then our y values, just so you can see that our calculations are still right despite the differences in the formula used. Okay, you see, it's still 0.75, and as we can see by the plot here, it is strong. There's a strong positive relationship between all of these variables right here. So as we can see, they used a different kind of formula. I think there's some covariance here and other stuff that is pretty much hassle to think about, but as you can see, there's a strong positive relationship, and with that, I think we have computed the weighted mean, the average weighted mean, as well as learning how to do the equation for the correlation coefficient, the Pearson correlation. So yeah, I guess that wraps it up. I hope this video was helpful for you in computing your data. Yun nga lang, okay, I'll just speak in Tagalog, it's kind of hard. Yun nga lang, pagtyagaan na magtali ng data, because once you have finished tallying, the rest will be easy. That is my advice. So I hope that kung sino pa man yung magde-data gathering, kung sino pa man lang yung magsisimula mag-data gathering, I hope you finish fast, and then you can tally it here, and then everything will be much easier for you. For actually, the significant difference is actually something I haven't done before, but there's a possibility, just a little possibility, that I will cover it as well in the future, since we are doing the significant difference on our capstone research. So yeah, I guess that's it for this video, and okay, salamat sa panonood. I hope you learned something valuable from this video, and peace.